Can you see the PPT that I'm trying to, the slide that I'm trying to present?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good, fine. So there won't be much of a PPT. This is just 2 or 3 slides just to start out with. So we are going to discuss this novel titled Roots and Shadows by the Indian English writer Shashi Deshpande. Shashi Deshpande. And this novel was published in 1983, and it's one of the novels you have to study as part of the Indian writing paper. So in this class, I thought I will provide a very quick introduction to the author Shashi Deshpande, and then talk about the most important themes of the novel, as well as give you a quick summary of the novel. And if as much of this as possible we will do today, and if by 4:30 we are not done with it, just let me know, and then maybe I will either continue if you guys are in the mood for it, or we will continue tomorrow. So Shashi Deshpande. Shashi Deshpande is a lady, not a man. In some of the summaries that I've seen on the internet, they keep saying he, but actually Shashi Deshpande is a lady. Many of you may already know this, but അറിയില്ലെങ്കിൽ പറഞ്ഞതാണ്. ഈ കാണുന്നതാണ് Shashi Deshpande. Very briefly about Shashi Deshpande. She is one of the foremost Indian English novelists, women novelists, and she was born in 1938 in Dharwad, Karnataka. So she is from Karnataka. She comes from an upper middle class Brahmin family in Karnataka. Her parents are Adya Rangacharya and Sharada Adya. Her father, Adya Rangacharya, he was a Sanskrit scholar as well as a famous Kannada dramatist. Kannada Nadagagirthumayirunnu, Sanskrit scholar, and from her father she learnt Sanskrit, and she also knows Kannada and Marathi, but she writes in English. She is still alive. She writes directly in English, and she's a very erudite person. She has degrees in economics, law, and journalism, as well as an MA. So she has taken all these several degrees, mostly from Bombay University. She has worked as a lawyer for a short while, and then again as a journalist. But then later she gave up those things for a full-time career in writing. She is married to Dr. Dhirendra H. Deshpande, who's a medical doctor, and they had 2 sons. Now, the story of how Shashi Deshpande came to be a writer is that after their marriage, Dr. Deshpande got a posting in England. They were in England for a while, and Shashi Deshpande felt that it was very difficult for her to stay. It was very difficult for her to stay at home alone while her husband went out to work, and she didn't really have many friends or relatives or anybody in England. So she felt she felt very lonely, very isolated, and she had this constant question of what am I doing with my life? And that really disturbed her. When she talked about this to her husband, he encouraged her to write about her experiences, and thus she started writing. Initially, she started writing short stories. Her first collection of short stories was published in 1978, and both her father and her husband were extremely supportive in her writing career. Then she published her first novel, The Dark Holds No Terror, in 1980. And then later in 1983, she published the novel that we are going to study, that is Roots and Shadows. She won the Sahitya Akademi Award for another novel titled That Long Silence, which was in 1990. She has also received the Padma Shri Award. She has received many other awards as well, and she has a long list of books which you can, of course, look up online. You will get a much more detailed biography of Shashi Deshpande from the link that I have shared in the chat. So I would request all of you to read that later at your own leisure. But these are the important points about her, and she is a writer who is very socially committed. So in her writing, you will see one of the main themes is that kind of social responsibility and a consciousness and awareness about social issues, particularly issues related to women, to the position of women in Indian society, but also other kinds of issues. She was a part of, as I already mentioned, she won the Sahitya Akademi Award, and she was also a part of the Sahitya Akademi's committee. But in 2015, she resigned from the Sahitya Akademi, and she also returned her awards as a protest against the silence of the Sahitya Akademi when the Kannada writer M.M. Kalburgi was murdered. So she said that as writers and as intellectuals, we have no right to just sit and not comment on the things that are going around in society. We should actually do that. We should encourage people who are doing that. And when something like this happens, especially to a fellow writer, then we definitely have to protest against that. And so she is somebody who's very strongly political in her views, even though in her writing mostly that comes out mostly in the form of writings related to women and their issues. So that is a very brief summary of Shashi Deshpande, a very brief biography of Shashi Deshpande. Then when we talk about this novel, Roots and Shadows, we can see some of the important themes in that. This is not an exhaustive list of themes. And also when we talk about themes, we cannot think about themes in isolation. We can't just say that, okay, this particular thing is an example of this theme. We can't talk like that, but rather all these themes are interconnected. And many of these themes can be seen in her other writings as well. But these are some of the important themes that I have identified and which scholars have generally identified as crucial to this novel, Roots and Shadows. So the first one is the identity crisis of a woman in Indian society. Now, as we mentioned, as we discuss the summary, you will get a clearer idea of what this means. But for Shashi Deshpande, the women in Indian society face an identity crisis because on the one hand, they are forced to conform to certain traditions and customs which either religion or other social structures compel them to conform to such norms of society. And this is supposed to be very important in India, especially because everywhere women might have to face that, but in India especially, in most communities, most traditional communities, the position of a woman is very important. It is as if the woman carries the responsibility for that, for the culture and the identity and the everything related to that community. So she is supposed to actually be a representative of the community. At the same time, if a woman wants to fight for her rights, then she has to then it seems as if she wants to be considered an individual rather than a member of a community, if she wants to ask for her rights, then everybody treats her as if she is working against the community, against Indian society. So to ask for her own rights seems like an act of feminism, which is considered to be a Western import. So this is a kind of crisis that even a woman herself might face, because on the one hand she wants to, if she becomes an individual, she has to leave her entire community behind, and then she might feel extremely isolated in society. On the other hand, if she wants to belong in her community and be part of that community, then she might have to give up her own desires, her rights, etc. So this kind of an identity crisis is something that we see in many of the women characters in Deshpande's fiction. Then connected to this is another idea, that of tradition versus modernity. That is very easy and simple. You can see it as we go ahead with the summary. And then the joint family system. This novel is set mostly in a traditional Brahmin joint family in Karnataka. So the joint family system is something that is discussed in great detail, both the positive aspects as well as the negative aspects of the joint family system. And it is again connected to the themes that have already been mentioned. Another important theme is the transformations in caste and class relationships that have occurred in Indian society over the course of the 20th century, especially after independence. So, in the latter half of the 20th century, as I mentioned, she has written this novel in the 1980s. So, that is a time when there has been a lot of turbulence in Indian society, a lot of transformations in the earlier traditional relationships of caste and class that existed in society. And these, how do these transformations affect people and their relationships to each other, their sense of their own identity? All these form part of Deshpande's interests. So we can see, as I mentioned, it's a traditional Hindu, Brahmin, upper caste joint family that we see. And the main character is a woman from this kind of a joint family. And we can see how, from her perspective, she is from a upper middle class family. She is not from, even though she is from a joint family, she is not somebody who's very traditional in her outlook. So from her perspective, we can see how these kind of transformations affect her as well as the other characters in this novel. And then another important, very important aspect, very important theme that we can see in this novel is a question of middle class privilege versus social responsibility. So Indu, the main character, the protagonist of this novel, is a representative of this middle class. She is somebody who has broken away from the traditional joint family in which she was brought up in her childhood. But as she gains adulthood, as she attains adulthood, she breaks away from that, and then she completely depends upon her education, her job, etc. And she and her husband become part of what is called the new middle class. But there is another problem. They may have left behind the structures of patriarchy and casteism and all those things that were part of the traditional joint family. But becoming part of the middle class also brings with it questions of privilege. And if you are privileged in society by being part of the middle class, isn't that privilege actually related to your class privilege as well? Caste privilege as well. So you have a class privilege because you are middle class, and it is related to your education, your job, etc. But still, your class privilege is built on the foundation of your caste privilege. And then also the question of, once you have this privilege, then how should you deal with social issues? Are you one problem that was faced, one problem that was, or rather one criticism that was leveled against the middle class in India, especially during that time, was that the middle class started to secede from the rest of society. So it was as if the social problems were just the problems of the extremely poor people, the ones who were suffering, and of some politicians. And the middle class were seceding from that. They were removing themselves from that, and they lived in their own bubble without being affected by any of those things. So this question of how the middle class, even though they have left the traditional society behind, and however, even in this modern society, how does the middle class enjoy a certain kind of privilege and refuse to accept any kind of social responsibility? This is also one of the important themes in this novel. And the character Indu faces this identity crisis, not merely because she's a woman in Indian society, not merely because she wants to be modern in a traditional society, but also because she understands that she is part of the middle class. She has this privilege, but she doesn't know how to deal with that. She doesn't know whether she is supposed to, she has this feeling that she should be doing more. She should be living in a more socially responsible manner, but she is not exactly sure how to go about with it. So we will keep these themes in mind as we go ahead and discuss the summary. So can I move on to the summary? ഇത്രയും പറഞ്ഞത് clear ആണോ?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so ഇത്രയും നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു. ഈ പറഞ്ഞ തീംസ് മനസ്സിൽ വെക്കുക എല്ലാവരും. ആൻഡ് സ്റ്റോറി നമ്മൾ വളരെ ബ്രീഫായി പറയുമ്പോൾ think about how each of these themes comes into the story. Okay. Now, before we get into the story, I hope all of you can see this particular slide. It is a family tree. This is Indu's family tree. It is the traditional joint family that we are talking about, and without this family tree we will get very confused. So I'm going to keep this family tree here, and you can see Indu in the middle. I have given a kind of red outline around Indu, and we will then talk about who are the different members of this family, and then go on to talk about the story in brief. So Indu's family, in the first generation, we have Indu's grandfather, but he is not a character in the story because he's already passed away. കഥ തുടങ്ങുമ്പോഴേക്കും ഇന്ദുവിന്റെ ഗ്രാൻഡ് മരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഇന്ദുവിന്റെ ഗ്രാൻഡ് എന്ന് ഓർത്താൽ മതി, പക്ഷെ മൂപ്പര് വലിയ ക്യാരക്ടർ ഒന്നുമല്ല. Then an important character is Indu's grandfather's younger sister, who is known as Akka. Akka is a very important character. Now, Akka is somebody who got married off. This is Indu's grandfather's younger sister. അപ്പോൾ ഓൾമോസ്റ്റ് ഇന്ദുവിന്റെ ഗ്രാൻഡ്ഫാദറിന്റെ ജനറേഷനിൽ വരുന്ന ഒരാളാണ്, ഫസ്റ്റ് ജനറേഷനിൽ വരുന്ന ആളാണ് ഈ കഥയിലെ. ആൻഡ് Akka got married off at the age of 12. And she had a very difficult life. She was married to a man who was 30 years old, and at that time she was married off before she even started getting her first periods. So she was just a child. She was not even of age, so to speak. She was not yet a woman when she was married off, and so she was married off to this man. And as soon as she became a woman, so to speak, by beginning to menstruate, she was pushed into his bed, and she had to endure a lot of torment, because men in those generations used to just take it as their due that their wives should live for their pleasure. So she went through a lot of trauma, and her husband was a person, he was a very horrible man. He used to be very rough with her. At the same time, he was not satisfied by having this very young, very small girl as his wife. So he used to have affairs with other women, and then he had a concubine. Concubine basically means a kind of girlfriend. Who, if a married man has a girlfriend, then that used to be called a concubine. So he had a woman whom he was in love with, but at the same time he was afraid of his mother. Therefore he did not bring that woman into the house. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അയാൾ ആ സ്ത്രീയെ ഈ വീട്ടിൽ കൊണ്ട് നിർത്തിയിട്ട് അക്കനെ തീരെ മൈൻഡ് ചെയ്യാതിരുന്നേനെ. പക്ഷെ അയാൾക്ക് അയാളുടെ അമ്മേനെ പേടിയുള്ളത് കൊണ്ട് അയാൾ അത് ചെയ്തില്ല. അതുകൊണ്ട് അക്ക ആ ഫാമിലിയിൽ അയാളുടെ വൈഫാണെങ്കിൽ പോലും, partly because she's a woman, partly because she was so much younger than him, and because of all these patriarchal structures that existed in that family, she suffered a lot. And she never had children, because she got pregnant a few times, but each time she had a miscarriage because she was so young, and she was not very healthy at that time. So all these things happened, and then her husband had a major accident, as a result of which he was bedridden, and he was quite old by this time, and he became completely dependent on Akka, but Akka looked after him completely. So even though he was very horrible towards her when he was in good health, even when he became ill and bedridden, Akka looked after him completely. And this was a very difficult thing for her to do, but she did everything because she thought that was her duty. As a wife, that was her duty. And there is a scene that is mentioned by another character about how Akka's husband used to always cry. He used to lie on his sick bed, and he used to cry. He could not speak. By that time he had a stroke, I think. He could not speak, and nobody knew what he was trying to say. He used to keep moaning and making some noises. ആർക്കും മനസ്സിലായില്ല ഇയാൾ എന്തിനാ ഇങ്ങനെ കരയുന്നതെന്ന്. അയാൾക്ക് എന്തോ പറയണമെന്നുണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ അത് ആർക്കും മനസ്സിലാവുന്നില്ല. ആൻഡ് വൺ ഡേ അക്ക ആസ്ക്ഡ് ഹിം, വാട്ട് ആർ യു ട്രൈങ് ടു സേ? ആർ യു ട്രൈങ് ടു സേ ഹർ നെയിം? അതായത് അയാളുടെ കോൺക്യുബൈൻ്റെ, അയാൾക്ക് ഇഷ്ടമുള്ള മറ്റേ സ്ത്രീയുടെ പേരാണോ പറയാൻ നോക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ അവളുടെ പേര് കേട്ട ഉടനെ ഇയാളുടെ കണ്ണൊക്കെ കുറച്ച് ബ്രൈറ്റ് ആയി. ആൻഡ് ദെൻ അക്ക സെഡ്, ഡു യു വാണ്ട് ടു സീ ഹർ? ആൻഡ് ഹി ഈസ് ലൈക്ക് യെസ് യെസ് എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ ഇയാൾ ഫുൾ ആവേശത്തിൽ വന്നപ്പോൾ അക്ക പറഞ്ഞു, എന്നാ അവിടെ കിടന്നു, അതൊരിക്കലും നടക്കില്ല എന്ന്. So that is maybe one very small way in which Akka had her revenge on him. but still she was very dutiful in the sense that she looked after him completely. Even when he was bedridden for 2 years, she looked after him, and then he died. After his death, Indu's grandfather brought Akka back to live in this family. And usually, widows are not given much. They were not given any importance in either their family or their husband's family. But Akka was a very strong woman. By the time she came back to this family, to Indu's family, she became extremely strong, and she started ruling the family like a matriarch. So everybody was scared of her, and people started listening to her. She had no husband, she had no children, but still she was extremely strong, and she could make even the men of the family fear her. The men, as in Indu's uncles. Indu's uncles and aunts actually feared her a lot. Now we will talk about. Now there's one more character from that generation, that is somebody called old uncle. The old uncle ശരിക്കുള്ള പേര് പറയുന്നില്ല, old uncle എന്ന് മാത്രമേ പറയുന്നുള്ളൂ. And that old uncle is a cousin of Indu's grandfather and Akka. So as far as Indu is concerned, he is a kind of distant relative, but he has always lived in this family. That is how joint families work. പല സമയത്തും ഒരുപാട് റിലേറ്റീവ്സ് ഒരുമിച്ച് താമസിക്കും. ആൻഡ് അതൊരു മോഡേൺ സെറ്റപ്പിൽ നോക്കിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഹൂ ഇസ് ദിസ് പേഴ്സൺ ടു യു എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ ചിലപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് വളരെ അടുത്ത ഒരാളൊന്നും ആവണമെന്നില്ല. മോഡേൺ ആയിട്ടുള്ള രീതിയിൽ നോക്കിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു ഡിസ്റ്റന്റ് റിലേറ്റീവ് തോന്നും. പക്ഷേ ബിക്കോസ് ദേ ഹാവ് ബീൻ ലിവിംഗ് ടുഗെദർ ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് ഹൗസ് as part of that family for a long time, they are extremely close. So this old uncle is somebody from the same generation as Indu's grandfather and Akka, but he is a cousin of theirs, and he is a poor man. He doesn't have a wife, and he was a poor school teacher, so he never had any other possibilities. So he is also living in this family. He's dependent on them. And old uncle had a daughter named Saroja, who used to sing very beautifully, and she wanted to learn singing, but Akka did not like this idea. She said women should not learn such nonsensical things like music. So instead of learning to sing, Saroja was married off. But somehow the man that Saroja married was a very nice man. He was very supportive, and he said, I will let you learn how to sing. And by that time Saroja was pregnant, so this man said, as soon as our child is born, you can start learning to sing. But almost immediately after the son was born, their son is Naren. He is Indu's distant cousin. He is from the same generation as Indu. But as soon as Naren was born, Saroja and her husband died. They drowned, actually. They had an accident. They died of drowning. And all Saroja's dreams, none of them actually materialized. And old uncle started looking after Naren. So old uncle and Naren are also characters who live in this same family in that ancestral house. Now we will go on to Indu's father's generation. Indu's grandfather actually has a lot of children, 6 children, and the first one is called Narmada. She's a lady, Narmada, and Indu calls her Atya. All these Indu and her cousins call her Atya, which basically means father's sister. So Atya is the eldest, and she is also a childless widow. But unlike Akka, she doesn't have any. She's not a very strong woman, and after her husband died, her husband's family started ill-treating her a lot. So she was also brought back to this family, and here again she doesn't have much voice because she is a widow. So, but she is a very gentle and kind and patient person. So what she does is she does all the work of this house. ഈ വീട്ടിലെല്ലാ പണി അവരാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഭക്ഷണം ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത്, പാത്രം കഴുകുന്നത്, അങ്ങനെ എല്ലാം. They have servants and all, but she does everything. She takes care of the children, etc. So that is Atya. And then the second eldest. So Atya is the eldest daughter of Indu's grandfather. Then the second eldest is called Anant. Anant is also called Kaka. Kaka also means uncle, father's elder brother. And Kaka is married to Kaki. Kaki is his wife, aunt. So Anant Kaka and Kaki are the people, other people who live in that house. He is also, Anant Kaka is not a very highly educated person. He doesn't have any proper job or anything. It is said that he actually studied some law and he was something that is called a pleader, but he never has a client. Nobody has seen him with a client. He has just lived in this family and he has taken care of the land and farming and things like that. And he was completely subservient to Akka. Whatever Akka said, he would listen because he was very scared of her. And Anant Kaka and Kaki have 4 children: Hemant, Sumant, Padmini, and Sharad. Padmini is also called Mini. Hemant, Sumant, Padmini, and Sharad. Of them, so these Hemant, Sumant, Mini, and Sharad are Indu's cousins from Anant Kaka. And of them, Hemant and Sumant later turn out to be wastrels. I mean, they not wastrels, sorry. They turn out to be failures. They don't really reach anywhere. Hemant doesn't even complete his education and they don't get very good jobs and they are very frustrated about that. And their wives are not very important characters in this, and children are also not very important. Padmini or Mini is a very sweet girl, but the problem is that Mini cannot get married because there is some problem in her horoscope. So there is some astrological problem, and therefore there is they are trying hard to get her married off, but they are finding it very difficult. And Sharad is the youngest brother in that branch of the family. Anant Kakade Makaletom youngest Sharadana, and Sharad turns out to be some kind of a wastrel. Like, he doesn't care, he doesn't try very hard, he doesn't work hard, he doesn't take any effort. He thinks he can just live his life. And because he's the youngest in that lot, perhaps he was able to influence Akka a lot, and he was able to charm her, and whenever he needed money, he was able to get money from Akka. So Akka had she held the purse strings in the family. Where ആർക്ക് പൈസ വേണമെങ്കിലും എന്ത് ഡിസിഷൻ എടുക്കണമെങ്കിലും എല്ലാത്തിനും അക്കയുടെ അടുത്ത് വേണം പോവാൻ. അപ്പോൾ Akka was the most important person in that family. All these people were dependent on Akka. Then the third person, the third son, is Govind, who is Indu's father. Now Govind is very different from the others in the family. He's a photojournalist and he married a woman. We don't even know Indu's mother's name or any other details about her, except that she was not from their caste. So Govind had an intercaste marriage with Indu's mother, but Indu's mother died when Indu was very small. Probably she died in childbirth, because it is said that Indu comes into this home when she was just 15 days old. She was only 15 days old. 15 ദിവസം ആ പ്രായത്തിലാണ് ഇന്ദുവിനെ ഈ ഫാമിലിക്ക് കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നത്. And Indu says that she grew up completely in this family because the father was a photojournalist. He used to keep traveling all the time. So he left her in this family too, so that the others will take care of her. And mostly it was Atya who took care of her, because Atya didn't have any children of her own. She took care of all the children, but especially Indu, who did not have a mother. So Indu grew up in this joint family until she was 18 years old. And Indu was a very rebellious child. She was a very curious child. So from childhood, she was always getting scolded, especially by Akka, because she either would not obey the rules or she would question the rules. And I will give you an example of that. Something very small and simple. She says that in their family, when they serve the food, there is a particular order in which each of the food items has to be put on the plate. So now you can think of our sadhyas also. നമ്മളൊരു സദ്യയിൽ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ സദ്യയിലെ വിഭവങ്ങളെല്ലാം വിളമ്പുന്നത് അതിന് ഫസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ഓൾ ഓരോ ഇലയുടെ ഇന്ന സ്ഥലത്ത് ഇന്ന വിഭവം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് there is a certain pattern in which things have to be put on the plate. There is also an order. Now, of course, the order changes depending on caste or community, depending on region, etc. But basically, in this is a Brahmin family. They have a very strict order of how to serve the food items in a plate. And Indu knows this order, but one day she decided to do exactly the opposite. Just ഒരു രസത്തിന് ഇത് മാറ്റിയാൽ എങ്ങനെ ഉണ്ടാവും എന്ന് അറിയാൻ വേണ്ടി അവള് അത് ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആയിട്ട് സെർവ് ചെയ്തു. അന്ന് പക്ഷെ ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് ആ കുട്ടിക്ക് ചീത്ത കേട്ടു. She was very small at that time and she was really scolded a lot, and she started crying and she went to this old uncle. Even though he was an old man, a poor relation and all, he was somebody who was very comforting to Indu. So she used to keep going to old uncle and talk to him. And she said, what did I do wrong? Why is it so? Why do we always have to follow the rules? Why can't we do things in a different way? And then old uncle doesn't really have an answer for that. He says, what is wrong with following the rules? Hindu rules must be there for a reason. So don't cry, don't worry about this. But he is somebody who still believes in rules. So what we understand about old uncle is that he is very kind and gentle to Indu, and he wants to encourage her. He appreciates her and admires her for her strength. But at the same time, he is somebody who believes in the rules, and he is very scared of changing the rules. So he also tells Indu, maybe the rules are there for a reason. So why don't you just follow it? The maximum rule and Indu cannot explain why it is important to her, because whether you serve the ingredients in the one particular way or the other, it doesn't actually matter to her. But for her, what matters is the stifling feeling, the feeling of suffocation when she is actually forced to abide by the rules. So that is Indu, and Akka keeps scolding her, and he keeps saying all kinds of things about her, especially her mother. And one day when Indu was around 18 years old, something they were talking, and Akka criticized Indu's mother. She said something very cruel about Indu's mother by saying that she is a woman from another caste and she must have seduced your father. And Indu got very angry. Indu didn't even know her mother while growing up, but she was still very upset because she doesn't have any memory of her mother, but still the idea of having a mother was very precious to her, and she had this idea that her mother was a very good person, so she didn't like it when anybody criticized her. And then Akka said something so cruel about her mother, and Indu decided to leave the family, and she went and started staying in a hostel until she completed her education. And then after that, she never looked back. So when she was 18 years old, she left the family and she went and stayed in a hostel. And then later, she got married to a man named Jayant. Jayant is also a person who's from a different caste and who speaks a different language. He is not from Karnataka and he is not from a Brahmin family. We don't know more about him. We don't know what caste he is or which language he spoke, but he is not from their caste. He is not from their, he doesn't speak their language. So this was also something that made Akka very angry. And for Indu, it was a kind of rebellion that she would break away completely from her family, and she would marry a man that she liked rather than whom her family picked out for her. So all that was very important to her. And her father was very supportive to her. And the only other family member who went to her wedding, which was in a register office, was this Anant Kaka. Even though Anant Kaka was scared of Akka, he still cared a lot for Indu. And so he went to attend the wedding. Nobody else from the family went to attend the wedding. And after that, for some 10 years, Indu has not come back to this family. Nobody has invited her and she has not come back. And Akka has made her displeasure against Jayant very clear as well. And the story actually starts when Indu comes back at the age of 29 when Akka dies. So that is Akka is very ill and she's about to die, and Indu comes to meet her. That is how the story actually begins. We'll come back to the story, but I'll quickly go into the other characters also. After Govind, there is Madhav Kaka, who's a younger brother of Indu's father. He was a civil servant, and his wife is Sumitra Kaki. They always behave as if they are much more sophisticated and cultured than the other members of the family. Then the youngest brother is Vinayak Kaka. He's married to Kamala Kaki, and both Madhav Kaka and Vinayak Kaka have 3 children. They are not very important characters. And then the youngest of the siblings is Sunanda Atya. So there are 4 men and 2 women who are the children of Indu's grandfather. Sunanda Atya is married to Vasant Kaka. They have 5 children. So these are all these characters. And as the story goes on, we will get to see that the interactions between these characters. What you have to keep in mind is that because it is a joint family and they are different types of people who are still, however, part of the joint family, there is a lot of pettiness, jealousy, etc. among the different characters. There are ego problems, all these things. So അവരൊരു ഫാമിലി ആണെങ്കിൽ പോലും അവർ തമ്മിൽ ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരുപാട് jealousy, ego എല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെ bitching and backbiting and all is happening. But at the same time, when something happens, they all behave as if we are part of a family. We should do everything together. We should plan together, etc., etc. Now, apart from all these characters, and then of course, we should not forget that old uncle and his grandson Naren are also part of this. And Naren is a very rebellious character, but not like Indu. He is a very he's rebellious, he's very sarcastic. However, he doesn't really reach anywhere. He's very intelligent, and he has an MA in economics, but he cannot keep a job. So even when he grows up, he cannot really keep a job. He always feels like an outsider in this family because it is not actually his family. So he is always, from the time of his childhood, he has always felt that he's been marginalized, he's an outsider. And even when he grows up, he has some problems in his mind, because of which he has some existential crisis, because of which he's unable to keep any job. So he works somewhere, and he is a very frugal person. He doesn't spend a lot of money or anything, but he saves a lot of money whenever he works. And then later, when he loses his job, sometimes maybe he's rude to his boss, or he does something happens, and he always loses his job, and then he lives on the money that he has saved. And he doesn't like living in the family. So even though he's part of the family and he keeps visiting the family, he has a small rented house in the town where he lives. So these are all the important members of the family. And apart from that, there is an orphan named Vithal, whom Akka has adopted. He was a Brahmin boy who was orphaned. He had no parents, so Akka just adopted him, and she started paying for his education. And he doesn't live in the house, but he lives in a kind of adjacent place, a kind of outhouse, which is part of their property. So these are the important family members.